Office of the Medical Examiner, Pete'sville. Dr. Jack Hanman is speaking. How can I help you?
Good evening, this is Kate Brooks. I'm not sure if you remember me. A few weeks ago, we talked about an article I'm working on. It's about your wife. I dropped by last Friday to speak to you, but you weren't working at the time. I asked the security guard to pass on a note for me. I would like us to discuss the topic of...
I thought I had made it painfully obvious for the last time. No! Please don't call me again and stop inquiring about my wife. Damn journalists. They don't let me work. God damn it. I'm not in the best frame of mind to record a lecture for my students now. I'm feeling completely broken. Where did I leave my meds this time? Okay, time to pull myself together. And get back to work. I need to set up the camera first. Now remember, Jack, don't forget to hit the record button this time. Hopefully the new tripod is going to hold up. Now, I just have to get everything in frame. This should be fine. November 20th, 1991. Time, 8:43 p.m. Recording for medical students from the University of Missouri. Let's start. Always wear an apron, mask, and gloves. And in case of sharp accidents, it's worth having disinfectants at hand. It's true that you won't get ptomaine poisoning straight away. You may end up with diarrhea. The cadaver is placed on its back on the autopsy table. The pathologist stands on the right of the deceased. Make sure that all the necessary tools are always like I do all the time. During your research, be patient, inquisitive, but above all, attentive to detail. Many entries are visible at first glance. In the process of revealing and securing forensic evidence, it is difficult not to interfere with the original condition of the deceased. Written and photographic documentation plays a vital role. And lastly, remember that nothing teaches you self-narration like working with the dead. So get used to that. Now, onto the police folder. That will contain all sorts of pertinent information as to who the deceased might be and what potentially happened. The deceased was found on the outskirts of a parking lot at a gas station, where the body was noticed by a station employee during the morning shift. Initially, he worked most of his life at the local port dealing with unloaded cargo. Signs of libation were found around the body. Empty bottles. The deceased's name is Tobias Chambers, locally known as Old Toby. Homeless and unemployed for at least a couple of years. That's it. It's worth remembering the context around the scene of a death. This allows you to better interpret any traces found on the body. I shouldn't start the procedure without gloves. Now it's our turn to take some pictures for our files. If I can just remember where I left the camera. Aha! There you are. I knew it was here somewhere. As I mentioned at the beginning, before we begin the internal examination, we need to document the cadaver and the condition it arrived in. We begin with a full body photo. Try and stick to the top-down rule, but this is not always possible. Let's keep in mind it's all about the legibility. Voila! Now we move on to the next step, looking for traces. Take your time. Look at the corpse from different sides, from different angles. A poorly healed wound. Looks old. I'll take a closer look later. The incision should be in the shape of a letter Y. We use a deep cut to reach all the way to the ribs and to penetrate the abdominal wall. Alright, now we peel back and separate the skin. Now, we need to remove the ribs. We'll need the loppers for this. Quite a satisfying crunch, for some anyway. After removing the cartilage tissue, we instantly notice two things. Firstly, there is no congestion of the internal organs. This means that although the deceased was hypothermic, it didn't kill him. Secondly, the deceased smoked like a chimney. So, we should take a closer look at those lungs. We can see some wounds in the feet and signs of frostbite, probably because the subject's shoes were too small. Hardened hands, worn out by physical work, and frostbite? That's something interesting. It will be necessary to check whether this injury was severe enough to cause damage to the brain. In a moment, we will check which of our initial observations will be worthy of further consideration. But before we get to that, I need to write down some basic data. Personal information. The deceased was unclothed. Date. Okay, as you can see, I note everything down on previously prepared forms. Every pathologist must keep a detailed record of every step of the autopsy. This not only allows you to track the procedure, but also collates the results together, upon which you may back up your conclusions. So, enough of the boring prep. Let's begin by taking a closer look. For this, you're going to need a magnifying glass. Which spot first? Here we can see frostbite on the fingertips. We can tell by the characteristic skin color. It looks like a burn mark. No doubt painful, but it's not pertinent for this case. I can confirm the presence of ecchymosis on the deceased man's head. Add alcohol. Definitely a painful mix of frostbite. Old Toby had been wearing shoes too small for him for a very long time. So far, there are a lot of superficial wounds, but only one serious injury to the head. Let's go back to our notes. First, I mark the location of the injuries and make notes for each one. So, the head wound. Even though this type of wound didn't contribute if Toby's body was... We're not in frost season yet, but high humidity, wind, and the inability to warm up can also be causes of frostbite. As you can see, we don't have much. Let's write down what preliminary causes of death we can think of. Considering the conditions in which he slept, his body may have become hypothermic. Various types of accidents are a common cause of death among the homeless and the elderly. Perhaps old Toby slipped and accidentally hit his head. The nights have been particularly nasty lately. We will check if there are any signs of freezing internally. This is of no interest to us, since the deceased clearly smelled of alcohol. We still have one thing left from the basics: rigor mortis. Well, we take our deceased by the hand, gradually re-raise it, Now let it go. As you can see, the hand falls loose. What's the conclusion? Death must have occurred more than 72 hours ago. The police information appears correct. Head trauma seems the most promising, so we'll start there. For this, I need an oscillating saw. The cut is made from ear to ear. After which, we remove the skin and the top of the skull. After the basic examination, we can see that the brain's cerebral gyri in both hemispheres are symmetric. The brain looks good. Let's take a cross-section. Some pathologists prefer to examine organs without removing them. However, for me, it's much more convenient to examine them on a board, which we'll do now.